Anthony, I know you're excited about this. The ETH ETFs have been trading for 6 days now. 6 days now, yeah. And while we are losing AUM because of the outflows out of the Grayscale ETH Trust, we did have our first day yesterday of $33.7 million inflows. That's on the 30th of July. Now that the ETFs are finally here, Anthony, especially the ETH ETFs, overall, just vibe check sentiment. What are you watching for as you are watching the Ether ETF flows?
Yeah, I mean, I think I had been saying this for a little while on my own show. The two main things that I'd be watching for were pretty obvious. Basically, the inflows from the new ETFs and also the outflows from the existing ETH product, which was converted into an ETF recently, as you were just talking about with regards to Grayscale having their GBTC product. Same thing happened with kind of ETH. And honestly, it's all playing out as expected. You know, everyone expected there to be for there to be these big outflows out of ETH for whatever reason, right? Maybe people wanted to change which ETF they're with because ETH is a 2.5% fee. You can go get a 0.15% fee on the Grayscale Mini Trust. So you can actually just get out of ETH and go straight to the Grayscale Mini Trust and you'll be able to take advantage of that. But then every other ETF is like 0.2, 0.25% fees. So you're actually like mad if you're paying 2.5% fees in ETH, just especially if you're paying attention. Obviously, Grayscale is banking on a lot of people not paying attention because there's still what, 40%, I think, of the
Quite a
original
lot, yeah.
AUM in GBTC. Whereas with ETH, there's still a large chunk as well. But yeah, if you look at this table that you've got in front of you, it basically shows that all the outflows came from ETH. It's been pretty big. It was front loaded. Like in the first week, there was a lot, but it's started to slow down and we've got some big inflows too. I think total inflows is like $1.3 billion or something like that. So the inflows have offset a lot of it, but I think last time I checked, the total flows is like negative 300 million or something like that for the whole period.
483 million is our net outflows. So that's
Yes.
outflows out of Grayscale that we have not regained in the other Ethereum ETFs.
Yeah. And honestly, I think that this is all very short-term noise because we know that this is finite selling, finite outflows from ETH. And we know that with the ETFs, they're a passive flow long-term vehicle. And we know that from the BTC ETFs that they've just kept sucking in money over like the last 6 months. So we can expect a repeat in the ETH ETFs. So yeah, that doesn't concern me at all. But I think it's only been a week, you know, there's not enough data to look at, but it's playing out exactly as expected, I think.
Yeah, Bitwise still coming in second place behind BlackRock for AUM. Bitwise got $284 million of AUM. BlackRock has 623. So not too many days away before BlackRock's going to punch through that $1 billion number. And Fidelity finally catching up to Bitwise with 279, but still in that third position spot. I do like looking at this chart, which is the comparing the Grayscale GBTC outflows when the Bitcoin ETFs launched versus the Grayscale ETH outflows. And you can see that ETH is outflowing at a faster rate than the Grayscale ETFs when the Bitcoin ETFs launched. And there, I feel like there's a number of different possible interpretations, and maybe the truth is a little bit of all of them. We've seen this story before, so like we know, hey, like what happens when the ETFs launch? Like, well, if you're in Grayscale, the answer is to get out of Grayscale. Another answer is just like, well, maybe there's just actually just less interest in holding the ETH versus Grayscale. Maybe there was more of a trade on ETH than there was on GBTC. What would you account for the faster outflowing out of ETH in the Ethereum ETFs versus the Bitcoin ETFs?
Yeah, I mean, I definitely think that you're on the money with like people, you know, we already know this story, how it plays out. So people are just getting out, you know, faster this time. But we're also in different market conditions where essentially when the BTC ETFs launched, it was a much more bullish period than it is for the ETH ETFs.
Right.
So that might be influencing things as well. But yeah, it has been interesting to see that the flows are coming out faster here. But it also might be that there are potentially bigger holders of ETH than there were of GBTC. Maybe the big holders of GBTC had already sold off everything and the ETH ones were still in there and they were just waiting until it got converted in order to do this. But at the same time as well, the mini trust for the ETH product was launched by Grayscale from day one, not like with GBTC and BTC that they've launched now with their mini trust.
So there's a place to outflow too.
Yeah, more so than the other ETF. So there is another place to outflow to. And as I said, it has got the cheapest fee right now at 0.15%, which is extremely tempting. Like if you're paying 2.5% in ETH and you've got that option, you're not going to stay in ETH. And
Right.
some people bring up that the fact that long-term capital gains for these holders, where they're just waiting until they hit long-term capital gains because maybe they bought when the discount was closing, because sorry, when the discount was very steep. I think it was like 50% at some point or something like that. And then once it goes into long-term capital gains, they'll rotate out of ETH into another product. I mean, as you said, like the story seems the same. It seems like ETH will have some AUM retained, maybe like 40% of the original AUM, but most of it should outflow over time into these other ETFs. And the net flows is all that matters. As long as the net flows are positive, I don't think any of the other stuff matters.
Yeah, and the ETH mini trust with the 0.15% grayscale fee, the mini trust for the Ethereum ETFs has taken in $200 million of inflows, 200 million on the dot, whereas the grayscale.
Plus they had that automatic conversion of about $1 billion of ETH into the mini trust, like they just did with GBTC.
Oh, interesting.
So,
oh, right.
but that
right,
doesn't
right.
count
Okay.
in this. I mean, it's at the top, but it
No,
doesn't.
yeah,
It's
you're
like the
right.
seed capital, but it doesn't count as the inflows because it was an
You're right.
automatic thing.
Okay.
But that also, yeah, I mean, counts, right? That's $1 billion that's
Great
not
call out.
coming out of ETH. It's in the mini trust now.
Because that would have otherwise have totally come out. Okay, just some numbers for the listeners. At Genesis, when we launched the Ethereum ETFs, the Grayscale ETH trust, which got converted into the ETF, had $9.2 billion worth of ETH in it. And then $1 billion, $1.02 billion got automatically rolled into the ETH mini trust with a much lower fee. And so that is presumed to what would have been outflows is now just going to stay as the lowest fee on the market, which is the Grayscale mini trust with 0.15. And then in addition to that, the Grayscale mini trust has also absorbed $200 million. So we are now at $1.2 billion of ETH in the Grayscale mini trust, which we could have only assumed would have been outflows. Nonetheless, Grayscale, the ETH, has still lost basically $2 billion worth of outflows, which has mostly been absorbed by the rest of the market, except for a net loss of about $483 million of ETH since the launch.
And I think that just one thing on that, like the fact that maybe there are people that came out of ETH and they're expecting the price of ETH to drop because of this kind of continued outflow, and they don't want to buy back in yet. Maybe they do plan to buy back in, but they're just waiting because maybe they can get a better entry. Like there is definitely an element of that, especially if there was a bunch of people playing this as a way to trade ETH, as a way to kind of stack more ETH here. So I think that's happening there because there's so much. I don't know. I wouldn't call it FUD, but there's so much attention on this where people are like, look at all these outflows, the ETH price is going to go back to the 2000s, then we can buy back in. Obviously playing that game is risky, but I'm sure there is a chunk of that capital playing that game that will eventually come back in. And that's why I said that the net flows over time, as long as they're positive, that's all that really matters, I think.
Yeah. And I think we saw the same exact dynamic with the Bitcoin ETFs once they launched. Everyone was surprised by both the amount of inflows, but then also the amount of outflows from Grayscale. And everyone realized like the Bitcoin price is not going up until the Grayscale outflows cease. And that's more or less what happened. And I expect that's kind of like the same dynamic that's at play here. Like, why wouldn't it be? So like the fact that we're seeing faster ETH outflows, it's like, well, that's the thing preventing the ETH price from going up. But it's happening faster, so at least we're getting it out of the way. So it's kind of like a wash. I don't really have any like strong opinions as to whether it's bearish or bullish.
It's noise, and it's the same as the rest of what summer has been for the price. It's just that summer lull.
It's also summer. Yeah,
it's noisy. Like if you go back and look at the historical summers of crypto, most of them have just been flat because people are outside doing things. Except COVID, where we had lockdowns, and that was actually nuts for the price.
Where we had DeFi summer instead.
yeah, exactly. So. That's just the classic thing in crypto, and I know people get antsy because they're like, oh, look at the stock market going up. It's like, well, the stock market's a different beast. It's not the stock market isn't viewed as this hyper risky asset class like
and people are paid to stay home and pay attention to the stock market.
Yeah,
in crypto, our vacation policies are a little bit more lenient than
yeah, for now.
Yeah. Nate Jarosi tweeted out, in 1 week of trading, the iShares Ethereum ETF, that's the BlackRock, already is in the top 15 inflows of all ETFs launched this year. Top 15 out of approximately 330 new ETFs. Top 4 inflows, all spot Bitcoin ETFs, by the way. So in 1 week, Ethereum, the Ethereum ETF from BlackRock has taken in more total AUM than all the other ETFs launched this year. Excuse me, top 15 of the Ethereum of the ETFs launched this year. So you can't really
in
say
1
that
week,
that's
right? Like I can't wait to
1 week
see.
versus 7 months.
Yeah, I can't wait to see what that's like in a few months. I think it's going to be much higher than that, which is pretty cool.
It is pretty interesting to note that on July 30th, so 2 days ago at the time of recording, Bitcoin had a day of outflows, which is rare for Bitcoin. Lost $18 million in AUM. But that was also the one day that the Ethereum ETFs, had net inflows of $33 million. And so it could be noise, but also we do know that there is going to be some amount of rebalancing between people with a Bitcoin-only ETF portfolio looking to have both of the major crypto assets in their balance sheet. I don't know if you have any comments or insights on that, Anthony.
I mean, I fully expect that that's happening. You know, there's this kind of thing with portfolio theories where you weight things on market cap, right? It's a very standard thing. So if you're weighting like 70% BTC, 30% ETH, because that's the rough market cap ratio right now, then I would expect there to be a lot of people doing that. Because especially if maybe they were like more bullish on ETH than BTC, but they bought BTC because that was the only thing they could buy with the ETFs for 6 months. And now they're like, well, I don't want to hold the BTC ETF anymore. I actually wanted to hold ETH. And they're converting into ETH instead of being in BTC. So there is definitely conversion going on. I think that's pretty clear from the numbers, but I do think it'll settle at that like market cap weighted thing and then rebalance every so and so months, like what happens in the TradFi world.
If you enjoyed all of that, then you'll absolutely love the Bankless newsletter. Join over 300,000 fellow readers, all for free. Click below to sign up.